Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be listening to a clubhouse room discussion we had a couple of weeks ago titled The Fear of Hell. If you were brought up in the two popular Abrahamic religions, especially Christianity, there is no way you didn't hear about hellfire. It was used to terrify us as children, used to put us in line as adults, and it has created a sort of trauma for some people all over the world. So this was a fun discussion, getting people's perspective on hell, the intensity of belief when they actually believed it, then also how they were able to get over the fear of hell. So if you are yet to subscribe, please consider subscribing. This podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any other place you get your podcasts. Then please join us on the Free Thinkers Hangout on Clubhouse. The links are in the show notes below. So now let's go and listen to the Clubhouse discussion we had a couple of weeks ago titled The Fear of Hell. Having your voice recorded, please don't come up, and we understand why you won't want that. So that's why we put that sign recording, so anyone that is coming in will know that everything here is being recorded. So welcome to the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be discussing the fear of hell, the fear of hellfire. All liars we go to hell. All liars we go to hell. Okay, hellfire. Oh boy, they use that thing to threaten us. So the hellfire is the stick to the carrots called heaven. That's the way I look at it now. It was actually what I saw. That's how I actually got rid of my fear of hell, because hell really terrorized me. I had so many dreams of falling into hell. Even that even that situation of where you are dreaming, next thing you are falling down. Next thing, the long time I was falling down, it was almost like I was seeing fire down below, only to now wake up in myself. So during the construction, seeing all the slavery, all the bullshit, what even triggered me, the Genesis 38, how women are being treated, I was still like, hellfire, man, hellfire. It was, where did I even, it was the one, I think it was a video, wherein the person analyzed it on how this heaven and hell, it just drew a parallel with the carrot and stick mentality, wherein if you obey, you'll be rewarded. If you disobey, you'll be punished. But the end goal is to keep you in line, keep you in check. So depending on your personality, if you are attracted to reward, the reward will keep you pushing. If you are a stubborn goat, the stick of hellfire will keep you in check. So that is what heaven and hell is about within the religious concept. Then saying that, okay, there's also heaven and hell in Islam. Oh, so everybody has their in their own cinematic universe. They have their own heaven and hell. That's the way I now saw it before I now finally lost that fear. So it was being able to see the carrot and stick parallel between heaven and hell. Then also see that heaven and hell concepts are also in different religions, which now enabled me to see that these concepts are designed to be the psychological gatekeepers for people to remain in those belief systems. And that is why it will continue and continue. So it is a psychological battle. The conversion from religion is a psychological battle. Once you are able to win it, nothing can stop you. It's a constant battle in the head. Only that, yes, in the case of Muslims, there's also the danger of actually being killed. So let's not discard that. But looking at it from a Christian perspective, as a former Christian, it was always psychological. Yes, there are some people, they'll be shunned. Their parents can chase them out of the house. But the Christian will not kill you, fortunately. It's not like if they could, they would. Because they always tell you, Go and try that with Islam.
Abikano.
Exactly. They tell you go and try that with Islam. But the basic concept of hellfire is a gatekeeper and is a mental prison to keep you in that mental prison called religion. So that's all for now. John, carry on.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, I agree with a lot of things that you said. I think there are things that I also considered quite much. I think noticing the way Muslims fear their own concept of hell very well. Like I noticed that Muslims fear hell very well, and they don't just fear hell; they fear this concept of punishment in the grave, because Muslims believe that when you die, before there is this final resurrection, there's going to be punishment in the grave for people that are, I don't know, the exact theology behind that, but there is punishment in the grave. Then you are raised up, and then there is now hell. So I noticed that Muslims fear all these things very well, and I just find it very irrational. So I'm like, okay, if I'm finding these their beliefs irrational, why am I having this psychological reaction to the one I've been brought up with? Rather, doesn't really make sense. So that is one part of it for me, and one other very big part of it, like something that made me overcome this fear of hell, is just reading the Bible. It may sound funny to a lot of people, but I'm going to try to explain. So, if you read the Bible, Christians have the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Yeah.
If you read a lot of the Old Testament, you notice that there is really no this concept of being punished in the afterlife. You don't really have it there. You even have so many parts of the Old Testament. That's I think the Jewish Torah, where Yahweh, you see him giving warnings to his people. I think a good example of this is it Deuteronomy 27? I'm not sure if it's 27 or it should be Deuteronomy 27, where Yahweh gives. He says, okay, if you guys keep my laws, this is what is going to be in it for you. This is going to be what you stand to gain. And the ironic part about this chapter that I'm talking about, if there's anybody that knows what I'm talking about, you can just let us know, is that there's a part for blessings, then there's a part for disobedience and curses. And if you compare both parts, the part for punishment it's like times 2 of the part for blessing. So what I'm just trying to say is that he tells them that, okay, this is what is going to happen if you don't obey my laws. And you can see the type of things that he uses to threaten them. You can see things like, I'm going to make you sick, I'm going to make your children starve and die, you're going to be poor, your land is not going to be fertile, you're going to be in famine and all that. So many things like that. So many earthly things that people don't desire. But you never see him saying, like, you don't see him saying, yeah, if you don't obey me, there is this place where you are going to go and you are going to suffer for eternity. No, you see that concept is not there. So when you read the Old Testament, and you see that this concept of being tormented in the afterlife, like, it's missing, you ask yourself this question, that, okay, does it make sense that God is trying to warn people of the dangerous things that can happen if they disobey him, and he forgets to talk about the very big one, like, how come? So if you approach the Bible from that perspective, you can see that, okay, this is something that, the way human beings develop beliefs, this is a much more later development. This is something that was added to the religion much after all. So when you see it from that perspective, like, it just sort of feel very silly to you, and you just find it strange. And that was one thing that helped me overcome that psychological fear of hell very much. All right, so who is going to speak next?
Okay, I think Bagwell's next. Bagwell, are you there? Okay, Bagwell is not there. Uche? Am I audible? Can anybody hear me? I hope I'm not in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Uche is not available. Okay, Neil, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I hear what John is saying about. I actually looked up the verse that he was talking about. Like Leviticus 26 says, "If you follow my statutes and carefully keep my commands, I will give you rains on your season and land and yield produce. So basically, your family won't starve. And basically, what I'm hearing from you guys is that hell is fear. It's based on ideas of behavior modification and trying to keep behavior in check. It's a psychological fear where I'll tell you that I'm a Christian, and I don't believe that that it's about behavior modification. I think some people, when they share the gospel, when they talk about Jesus, they talk about how Jesus, like, if you don't believe this, you will go to hell. That is not the correct way to share the gospel. That's not the correct way to share about Jesus. And I know that my worldview is different than most people that are listening. My worldview is different than you, and I want you to know that I respect your commitment to your worldview. As a ranting atheist, John, I respect your worldview as well. And I think it's important to have a worldview discussion first, and to understand that we come from different worldviews. So presuppositions are very important. And so the presuppositions that I have are different than your presuppositions, just about where the world came from, where the world is going. I would say, in terms of having a discussion on hell, I think from a Christian worldview, it's important to have the discussion about how do you solve the problem of evil in our world? What is the answer to the problem of evil in our world? We hear, like we see what's happening in Afghanistan. There's wars continuing in Africa. There's wars continuing in other places in the world, the Middle East. So many crazy things, hurricanes, that's going through Haiti, or just went through Haiti, and the devastation that's happening there right now. How do you have any semblance of justice? And so, my belief, and I think the purpose of hell is that God is using it for cosmic justice. But I just I you know I it's hard to give you a broad answer that will satisfy everyone, because I know that I come from a different worldview. But I guess my question for everyone else, if anyone wants to answer, is how do you, from a secular worldview, or from your specific worldview, you might be Muslim, you might be something else, how do you deal with the problem of evil in our world, and what is your answer for justice? And even if we don't see justice on this side of the world, if you read in the New Testament, it talks about it in Romans chapter 12. It talks about how God will have vindication. He will have justice. That at the end, when everything is done, there will be cosmic justice. But from your worldview, how do you deal with evil in our world, and punishment for that evil, even if it doesn't go punished in this lifetime? Thank you for letting me talk.
All right, thank you for talking. Mikey, you wanted to respond?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for let me speak. And thanks, Neil, for coming on and sharing with us. I know, like, being in a place filled with atheists, it's not usually every Christian's. Not all Christians really comfortable coming into spaces like this. So, a couple of things I wanted to pick on was the saying, you don't think of hell as behavior modification, and you said more as justice. And I don't think these two things are mutually exclusive. So I would use our legal system. We have a legal system where, hey, if you get caught stealing, committing murder, there is X punishment. It's not just enough, not just for justice's sake to have the punishment. It's also it's also necessary for people to know that there are repercussions for all of for all of the things we don't want people to do. That is the behavior modification part of it. So if it was just if God had just let us do a guessing game of, hey, you guys just go have at it, and you know, and at the end of the day, I'll tell you who goes in heaven and who goes in hell. That would not. That would just be, God, being justice. Being justice or something. If he just said, "Hey, be good, be evil, figure it out. You should know what is good by yourself, or be evil, or what is evil by yourself." But if you go, "Hey, these are the things you ought not to do," if not hell, there's no other way but saying that is going to affect your behavior, except if I'm not interpreting behavior modification correctly. But then to answer your question, what do we do with evil beyond this life? And like, there's nothing. That's it. Like, some people will do shitty things and will die and will get away with it. Life is not fair. There's nothing I can do about that, and that's not something I want to care about. I do want to make the world we live in a good, better place. But I will add something that I think may surprise you, is that I think the concept of hell isn't that. I think the concept of hell is people blowing what might be a good way to modify behavior. I think it's a good thing to modify behavior, by the way. I'll point to a legal system. It's good that we go, hey, don't murder. If you don't murder, there are repercussions. And we do this with our kids. Hey, don't do this. If you do that, there are repercussions. It's good to have all of that. And the easiest way to do these things are by telling stories. Stories, if you leave aside hell, there are other stories we tell our children because we want them to modify their behavior. We tell them the stories of good prospering and evil not really prospering at the end. All of this is a way of trying to modify people to do better. And I think hell is just one that has just gone overboard. There are some books that little kids read that would tantamount to child abuse, as far as I'm concerned. And it's only looking back that it seems that way. But I'm trying not to throw away the baby with the bathwater. There is something in there I get where they were going with that, but I don't think it's helpful in the long run. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Mikey. Neil, you want to respond to that very quickly so that we'll move to the next person? Okay, no response. Joshua, you want to respond or you want to join the queue?
I think he's not there.
He's not there.
I'm here.
Yeah, are you responding to Neil?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, quickly, in minutes, please.
All right. So I think first I would like to talk about hell not being a modifier of behavior. I just like the last speaker. I think it does. I mean, it's sort of mimic this operant form of conditioning that has to do with reward and punishment. I mean, it's a well-known thing. When there is a reward for something, you should expect that people's behavior are skewed towards doing that thing. And then when there's punishment and something that is as scary as internal torment, like the air is perceived to be, you expect that people, don't commit that act or don't participate in that form of behavior. And looking at when he said that different people have different ways of preaching the gospel of Christ, quote unquote. Yeah, that's true. But that's just another easy way to just escape or to just try to not discuss the matter of what hell is. I mean, we're talking about the fear of hell here, yeah, because the way it is usually preached or talked about is very scary to people, and for the most part, a whole lot of people are kind of trapped into believing the story, not so as not to, end up being in the place of torment for eternity, which is understandable. So because of that, they have to modify their behavior, whether or not they want to do that. I mean, and most times, even people might make it seem like you're making a choice, like you have a choice to make between, believing and not believing, going to heaven and not going to heaven. But it's as if the choice is not really there. I mean, when you are given a choice between going to heaven and being in eternal torment, no one wants to be in an eternal torment. So you should expect that people should be afraid enough or scared enough to move into choosing the other option, which is eternal enjoyment. And we've seen that over time, hell is a tool, especially in this part of the world. In Nigeria, for instance, is usually at the center of the message of most Christians, because it's a tool to convert the people. I mean, once you plant a fear in them, personally, to something that kept me on for a long time, because you don't want to end up in that part, so you want to modify your behavior just to choose the better option. And talking about the problem of evil that he spoke about, first thing first, I feel he said that the idea of heaven and hell is itself as a cosmic like
justice,
how will I put it,
cosmic
is a form of-
justice.
yes, cosmic justice. And I think it's a very it's not, I don't agree with that, because the idea of a hell or heaven is a very terrible idea if it is supposed to serve as justice. Because come to think of it, what we warrant you to be in heaven and hell, it's a simple thing. It does not even have to deal with behavior necessarily. It's a psychological state, which is to believe. So even if you commit the most erroneous acts, you kill people, and then at the point of death you change your mind and you believe in the special story constructed by the Christians, you earn a place in paradise. And even if you live the best life and you, I mean, in quotes, the best, like you've done good to people, like the good in terms of promoting their well-being and all of those things, and you fail to believe, to just go into that psychological state, just believe in some special stories, you end up in hell. I mean, like, in our idea of justice, whether or not it is flawed, maybe our idea of justice as human is flawed, but when we look at that, it doesn't actually do any justice, really, because that's, you can just hide under the guise of that and do the most erroneous act. We see that happening, let's say, religious houses, in maybe Christendom or even in Islam. People commit a very terrible act, and they're still going to get away with it. And some of them are believe that they're going to end up in heaven and not hell, because they kind of believe. So the sense of justice is not really there, because even the most unreligious person knows what it is to obtain justice. At least we are familiar with the law and all of those things. So it doesn't really do the, justice to, like, the problem of evil, like you said. And the problem of evil, I feel that it's something that we probably won't be able to solve at all. And maybe nothing could be really done to that in reality, because a whole lot of things that have happened throughout history, and they're going to happen throughout, like,
Already over a minute.
as long as humans exist. So really, that's really what I have to say, by the way. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, bro. Thanks for that, bro. Just to add to what he said, if I kill one person and I die, I'm going to hell. Hitler killed millions. He's dead. He should be in hell. That's not cosmic justice. I call that bullshit, man. Fucking bullshit. Anyway, Bumi, you're next. Bumi, are you there?
Bumi, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think concerning what Neil said about the gospel not being about the gospel not being about hellfire and all that, I think it's pretty wrong, because we can't separate the concept of hellfire from salvation, and I feel like that's the first step we need to take, because the whole idea of Jesus Christ is because he wants to redeem us from eternal damnation, right? So the idea of Jesus Christ just falls apart if we take away hellfire. So that being said, even Jesus himself severally described hellfire, severally described torment, the gnashing of teeth, and all that. So it's a pretty elaborate concept in the Bible. It's in the New Testament, to be precise. So it's not something you can separate from the gospel of Jesus. The gospel of Jesus actually rests upon the concept of hellfire. It's just like Batman and the Joker. It just doesn't make sense for Batman to have no villain. So there's Jesus Christ is bringing salvation from something, and that is from eternal damnation. So I feel like that is I will not take that because we most of us here were Christians before. So that is not what we know. That's not what the Bible says. But that being said, I agree with what I think even Michael, I can't remember. Yeah, what Mikey said about being behavior modification and everything. So I think most of what I want to say has been said properly, has been addressed. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Bumi.
Sorry, Bumi, the first part of your statement, who were you exactly addressing?
I think that should be Neon, Abby. Or who was it?
Okay. I just want to.
I was addressing Neil. Neil said
Okay.
that's the concept of that's
Okay, I want to quickly say something.
he said that the idea of the gospel is not essentially about hellfire. All right.
Okay, I get what you are saying. I just want to say, like, the thing is that Christians disagree on the view of hell. So I know when you are talking about hell, you're thinking of eternal conscious torment or eternal damnation. So I want to say, like, there are Christians that just believe that Jesus died to save people from death, like literal death. So when they are talking about eternal, they are thinking of eternal death, like it's not, you don't have life. So they don't have this view of you're being tormented forever, but they still believe that Jesus is saving you from something. At least Jesus is dying so that you can have life, so that you can live in eternal bliss forever. So even though they don't have that traditional, let's just call it traditional view of hell, they still believe that Jesus is dying to save you from something. So I just want to say that in response to what you said.
Okay.
And that's the problem with the whole Christianity. They are not in agreement.
Yeah. So I feel I'm speaking from the view of what the Bible is saying. We can have different ideologies from the same book, of course. We have churches that don't wear sandals for some reason, and then we have churches that wear sandals from the same movement stand. But I feel like basically what is written in black and white is what I'm taking just for what it is. How Jesus himself described the eternal damnation and the path of fire, the lake of fire. I think it's pretty repetitive. So you might not want to chill, or maybe you might not want to. I understand what you're saying, that they have different ideologies of what eternal damnation or salvation is or translate to. Yeah, I'm just saying, of course, to entertain the bias or to entertain dissonance, there's a need to tone down those things. Not every Muslim man beats their wife too. So I feel like there's a part of basic maybe intelligence for people to generate certain things. But I understand you, so yeah. Thank you very much for that. Sure.
All right, now. Moving on. Afolabi, you want to add to the conversation?
Oh, hi everyone. Yeah, it's just I saw the topic and it was kind of interesting.
Okay.
So for me, like, I just want to add a little thing. For me, recently the way I see heaven, or quote unquote, is it's not actually a static, like a static place or location. It is just like that you will end up after life or something. So basically what our religion like teaches us is like, if you do good, you will end up in heaven, and otherwise, or then hell. So for me, I just feel like
sorry to cut you. Which religion are you? So that we have for context. Okay, Muslim.
No, I am not identified as any.
Oh, okay.
I used to be, but I'm not identified as any for now.
Oh, my bad.
Oh no, it's fine, it's fine.
Okay.
So so the problem is recently, I think 2 years ago, and I've been going through a lot of things, like my health and everything. So I always feel like, so there's one person that I actually preach, because I was born into like a Christian and a Muslim family at the same time. My mom Christian, my dad Muslim. So I technically, I always feel like, oh, so I have two surgery in 1 year, like 2019. So on left eye. So I was listening to like some prayer they sent to you on WhatsApp, this that. So I was just like, okay, I haven't been doing anything bad in my life. So why will I be tormented this way? So my point is so heaven is actually like a state of mind to me. So my accomplishment, like what I want to accomplish, like let's say if my religion is stopping me from maybe being a doctor, is just an example, sorry. So and I go out of my way to do that, or like I want to be a nurse or not anything. So I just feel like that if I actually achieve that, that's like heaven to me. So I don't really believe if you die, you end up in some like pit, or you'll be tormented at your grave or something. Though I used to believe that, but this world, like most of the thing, there should be a point where there should be logic. So like a lot of things about religion, like you have to apply logic to it, and you see it's not right. A lot of things, even in Christianity, Islam, like there are so many things that we need to like draw line. Oh, this thing, there is no logic, there is no logic there. But I'm not saying they don't, like all religion, they try to preach peace, and it's actually holding the world into like in a peaceful, or like in a better not I don't want to say better state, because we have a lot of problem. Yeah, but that's another politics that entirely. But I'm just saying, like, even if there is no religion or whatever, we still be better, because there is justice system. And some people ask this same question every time. Oh yeah, if there's not this, there's no like punishment for this or that. If let's say if I'm like a fraud now, if I get caught, like yeah, I'm actually going through my own hell. That's the meaning. And if I don't get caught, yeah, it's your heaven. That's the way I see it. I'm not encouraging any bad thing. So like I'm just trying to say, so there are like all these things we have to look into it. It's just like logic to me. So I don't really see any like big conversation like if you do this, you will do this. Or like I ask myself, so if I'm not a Christian, will I go to hell? If I'm not a Muslim, will I go to hell? And or like if I'm not this, will I not be this? So like there are so many things we need to look into. So so from there, I believe it's just like a state of mind, and you just have to be. And we have, and again, I always believe this thing. When I was young too, like younger people, my niece, I ask them, I just be like, okay, if you do this, is it good or bad? Honestly, you don't have to teach them, they know. I don't have to slap somebody before I know, oh yeah, I'm hurting this person. So to be honest, I just feel like, yeah, it's actually, we have consciousness to tell us what we are doing is wrong or bad. So it's just like there are some things that we have to still debate. Is this good? Is this bad? Are we hurting other people? So that's just my own contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution, Afolabi. So up next now is Mikey.
I don't know if I have much more than last time.
Okay.
But let me just add a couple of things. I'm happy for any Christian to adopt whatever version of hell is not the basic form of child abuse that I see in a lot of that's still going on in a lot of, it's mostly Pentecostal churches in China. So I'm happy for anybody to change their view. That is all for the better for me. The other thing I guess I would add is that again, I'll just reiterate that I understand wanting to have a story that makes people do better and like discourages people from doing bad things. I mean, like thinking, like other people have pointed out, I don't think there's anything you can do in this life that eternal damnation is the answer, or is justice in quote unquote for like and even someone like Hitler, like one of the worst people of all time. I don't know that burning forever, eternity is fine. Maybe 1 million years, maybe 1 million years of him burning. For, but eternity is a very long time. It's just like an infinite punishment or finite punishment seems like a very misguided sense of justice.
All right, now thanks for adding that. Up next now is Joshua. You want to finish? Yeah. Okay, you're not available now. Okay, let's keep Mr. Biscuit.
Hello. Glad to be a part of the conversation. I think a lot of people don't understand the concept of hell from the Christian perspective. When fire is being mentioned, the fire is not literal. A literal fire requires air and oxygen and matter and space, whereas when hell is being described, it's a spiritual or extra dimensional place, perhaps. So maybe the metaphor of fire is just something that the farmers and the agricultural society would have understood as a metaphor, but wasn't being used literally. Just as in the book of Revelation, heaven is described as having streets of gold. I don't think it's literal gold, the gold that would be found on earth, or literal pearls or diamonds that have been found on earth. But what John was describing is that that it's everlasting, such as gold doesn't tarnish and it doesn't rust. So he's trying to explain that this is an everlasting reality, and gold is the best word he can use to describe that as an ancient person, similar to fire being the best way to describe kind of the anguish. Someone mentioned Hitler. The last person that spoke mentioned Hitler and whether burning for eternity was a worthy punishment for Hitler. And I think you can kind of see, if you've ever watched Hitler give a speech, that the burning is happening inside him already. So the Bible has kind of a deeper meaning than something so literal as being transported to a real hell as a location, but is kind of describing, I think, what's already happening in the hearts and souls of people.
All right, thank you, Mr. Biscuit. There's a question that comes to mind now. So to you, why you say there's a deeper meaning, interpretation, and all that, why doesn't the Holy Spirit settle this dispute among Christians? Because the vast majority of the Christendom are expecting people to roast like barbecue. So why doesn't the Holy Spirit settle this matter?
I think that the Holy Spirit does operate to settle these things. I just think that just as Jesus said accurately in the Gospels, that there's a lot less Christians than those who say that they are. A lot of people have agendas other than the one that Jesus had, which isn't to say that everyone who has the wrong idea about hell or heaven is automatically not a Christian. I mean, I think as people, God is pleased by our having different understandings and different perspectives, as long as we don't use them to condemn people.
All right. I would like to say some things to what you said there. I want you to be careful about saying some people are not, maybe they are less Christians than. I understand what you mean, that maybe not everyone is a sincere Christian, but the thing is that if you go to almost every denomination, you meet all kinds of Christians there. You would meet the one that is the lukewarm Christian. You meet the very sincere Christian that is trying to seek the will of the Lord and follow God and all that. You are going to meet all these
True.
type of people there. And the thing is that you see that still it is still the primary doctrine of their denomination that still influences their theology. So that's what you see. So it doesn't seem like there's this Holy Spirit person that is actually telling them the objective thing that God wants to do. Because if that was the case, you would expect a sort of what was this word? You expect a sort of convergence in theological views. That's just one thing I wanted to say. Secondly, you said the fire is not literal and all that. Yeah, I can grant you all of that. But what you describe, the sort of burning that we see in Hitler, the sort of anguish and all that, it's still something that is negative. It's still, I think you could compare it to somebody having a bad psychological state, which is actually a bad thing. And if someone is going to be in that state forever, it's still going to be a bad thing on that person. So what we would do or like what we human beings do is that we try to remove that person from that state. And if we can't even do that, maybe we sort of try to restrict the person from hurting themselves, like we treat people that have psychological illnesses. So you still have, even if it's not the literal fire, you still have this problem that okay, this terrible thing is happening to people for eternity. And okay, if God can't save them, why doesn't he just maybe take them out? Like some Christians believe, some Christians are annihilationists. They believe that God is going to take such people out. They're not going to continue existing for all of eternity. So why doesn't God just do that? And you also have the issue, like this is one of the biggest problems for me from the Christian perspective, is that you have a God that is all knowing. So before God creates anybody, he knows that okay, this is the state of, this is how this person is going to end up. Now, I'm not trying to argue that God's knowledge takes the person's free will again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying God knows what the person is going to do ultimately and all that. And he could say, okay, I don't want this thing to happen, so I'm not going to create the person in the first place. But God goes ahead he knows what is going to happen. He knows that this person is going to reject Jesus and all that. And he goes ahead to create the person. And of course, if you take a literal interpretation of Matthew 7:14, you have to say most human beings that God creates are going to end up like this, because narrow is the way and few find it. So it doesn't really make sense that God doesn't want this to happen, and he could prevent it by not creating the person in the first place, but he goes ahead to create the person. So I don't see how you could ultimately you have to like say God has some responsibility to bear in this case. And that is just what I have to say to the points that you raised up. Thank you.
I think you make a lot of very good points. I had a daughter. My daughter is 7. She is 7 months old. And before I had my daughter, I knew that there was a possibility that she would grow up to hate me one day. That's still a possibility, even though she's 7 months old. And so if the question was posited to me, why would you choose to have a daughter knowing that she might someday hate you? There might be some trauma in her life. There may be something terrible which happens to her. I think that when God created man and gave man the freedom of the will, the freedom to either love or hate, love is the greatest ethic in the universe. Love is the greatest thing one person can do for another. And I think in order for that love to be real, it has to be free. It can't be mechanical or robotic, right? So there has to be the option of hate in order for love to be real. And so I think that God found love such a powerful and important thing in the universe that he allowed there to be the option of hate that unfortunately a lot of people have taken that option.
Okay.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but let me just quickly say this, so maybe we could move on. Yeah, I get what you said, but the difference between your analogy and in the case of God is that you're not omniscient. If you add the omniscient knowledge that your daughter was going to become a serial killer, like you knew this for certain, I don't think you would go ahead to have your daughter. But I hope your daughter is not going to become a serial killer, and I don't think that's the case. I'm just using it as an example. So that's the difference with what you have with God. Like God knows exactly what is going to happen. He knows that okay, this is how this person is going to end up. It's not a matter of chance. He knows because of or I don't know, maybe you kind of see God's foreknowledge in a different way. And secondly, I was just going to say, yeah, the issue of free will. This is where I get a lot. This is where it doesn't make sense to me anymore, because according to Christianity, God Himself has free will, but God is bounded by His nature. Even though God is free, God has free will. God cannot choose to hate people, because God has a perfectly loving nature. So the same way God can't choose to do evil, even though He has free will, but because He has a perfect nature. The same thing you have with people that end up in heaven. Like Christians believe that there's this thing called is it sanctification? Yeah. So if you're a Christian, you are sanctified when you get to heaven. People that belong to the Eastern, the Orthodox faith, they call it is it theosis? Yeah, they call it theosis. So you become more like God. You have this loving nature as well. So you can't be in heaven and be desiring to maybe cheat your neighbor or kill your neighbor, because you have this nature like God. So those two examples that I just gave, God and people that end up in heaven, they are free, but they don't do evil because it's not part of their nature. So you have to ask the question, like, okay, why didn't God just create people like that in the first place? And that's where I see the problem with the free will defense, and that's just my responses to what you said.
Okay, all right. So let's move on.
Add something from an Islamic perspective
on this particular on what Mr. Biscuit said.
Yes, in terms
quickly.
of heaven and going to hell, like from an Islamic perspective, there is a hadith, the fourth hadith of the 40 hadith of An-Nawawi. Maybe some of you know, or maybe you don't know. It says a person's destiny has already been written for him. Like, a person can be a good person until who sent me a message? Sorry. A person can be a good person, but until a few days left to his death or so, he might just change to be a horrible person, because it has already been destined that he is going to hell. Like, it's written in a hadith. So what I'm trying to say is, there is no way you can tell me that a merciful God who is all-knowing will create someone, and it just doesn't make sense. I can't even explain anything regarding this issue, because there is no way an all-knowing God, will create someone and then say he has already destined that person is going to hell, and then you can come and tell me that God has given that person free will. That doesn't make sense at all.
Beyond this is why
you understand what I'm saying?
Specifically
yeah, I'm with you. Bumi, yeah. Okay, I'm you telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, with you, Leo.
Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
So that's what I'm trying to say. You can't tell me that God has given people free will when everything has been destined already.
That is true. So now that's just like how you describe it. That's also what the Calvinist says. John, is not that's the Calvinist view? Predestination. Once you are predestined, your free will is off the table.
Yeah, I can speak as a Calvinist.
Oh.
Is it okay if I share?
Okay. Nick, quickly, Neil.
You're a Calvinist. That's interesting.
Yeah. So I just want to speak as I would say I'm a Christian first, but I subscribe to Calvinism because it and actually the medium, how it works, and this probably will not be satisfying to any of you. I'll tell you right away. But how free will and one of the things that Leo was talking about was kind of this determinism of how before the foundations of the earth, this is what Scripture says, that the Bible says that God knows the end from the beginning. He knows what's going to happen in eternity future and eternity past. That is the essence of God's omnipotence and omnipresence, as John was talking about.
Omniscient, or other place. Omniscient,
yes.
What they call it, yeah.
Omniscience, and there's also omnipotence. He's all present and omnipotent as well. But how the Calvinist explains it is that it is a mystery. So, and I know that's not going to satisfy anyone, is that how do we know? Well, we are very finite in our understanding. And so one thing I would like to respond to some of the things that John has said is, why doesn't God do this? Why doesn't God do that? Well, that is... it's like saying, why doesn't God play by my rules? Or why doesn't God do what I think is best? And I'll tell you from the Christian perspective and from my worldview is that as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is the Father's love for us. So his love is unending, but his thoughts are not our thoughts and his ways are not our ways. And I know for many atheists that comes off as a cop-out, that comes off as a well, you can't answer anything then, and you just have a blanket answer. And I don't think it's satisfying. It is not satisfying to use that in places where it's abusive. I think that should not be used as, oh, I don't know, God knows. I don't think that should be used that way. Or to say, well, maybe I'll figure it out later. But I just wanted to respond as a Calvinist that if you're interested in looking at what the Scripture has to say about how God works in salvation, and also how God works in this determinism versus free will, I would say Ephesians 1 is a great place to start. It's a book in the New Testament, and basically it talks about how it is a mystery. It is a mystery how the two work, and one day I hope to learn and understand from God to see the full picture. But in the scriptures in 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about how we see in a mirror dimly, but one day we will see fully what God has. So we only have a small picture, like you guys have probably heard about. Searching for God is like blind men touching an elephant, saying that they're different things. But I'm sure you guys have probably heard that one says it's a banana leaf because he's touching the ear. One says it's a snake because he's touching the snout. And one says it is a tree because he's touching the leg. But I'll tell you from my perspective and from what I understand, it is something entirely different when the elephant speaks. It changes the entire idea or the entire searching. If the elephant says, "I am an elephant," you no longer wonder.
That is exactly what God needs to come and do. God needs to scream. God is the fucking elephant in the room.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
If an elephant said, "I'm an elephant."
Okay, everybody, hold on.
Sorry, I want to quickly say some things to what Neil said, but like I have a lot to say, but I'm just gonna keep it short. Right. So, of course, if you know me very well, you know I like Calvinists very well. I think they are my favorite type of Christians because I like horror movies and psychopaths, and I think the Calvinist God is a psychopath.
You call me a psychopath?
No, not you. Sorry, not you.
But I said I was. So then you're calling me a psychopath. I mean, I'm not offended. I'm just interested.
You said the Calvinist God.
I said the Calvinist God is a psychopath. Like, that's how I see. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I'm just going to try to keep some things I have to say. So I just want to ask one hypothetical question. If you let's say you get to heaven now, you're saved, and you finally God is going to reveal the mysteries to you, and you ask God that, okay, why is it that you could predetermine it in such a way that everybody is saved, but you did it in such a way that these people are going to go to hell and suffer for eternity, and God just tells you that, well, I just did it because it's cool to me, it's fun to me, I like it. Like, at that point, what are you going to do?
Well, that is definitely your perception. Like, you are like, so I mean, even the question comes from well, why didn't you do it the way that I thought you should do it?
No. It's hypothetical, like purely hypothetical. You said there is a mystery. There's a lot of things that we don't know,
Yeah.
and I agree
But
with you.
here's
And
the
I'm trying
thing:
to ask
like,
you that. I'm trying to ask you
is
that.
that
What if
response?
that is the answer that God gives to you? Like, what do you
Great.
do at that stage? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I do. I would say, who are you? Because that does not fall within the nature of God that is revealed in Scripture. So, who are you that's answering? Because this does not sound like the grand narrative of a God that created everything and loves His creation and is patient with His creation and cares for His creation and constantly pursues His creation. Like one of the things that many people miss if you don't read Scripture like within context, many people miss that God is patient with His people. God pursues His people. God cares for His people. God provides for His people. But if you don't have the broad picture, the basic understanding but I'll tell you, I give no judgment to anybody that thinks that, because here's the deal. I mean, you and I, John, I'll tell you, we're from a very different worldview, and how we answer the big questions in life is very different. Why am I here? Where am I going? What is the purpose of this human experience? You and I have very different answers for that. So I'll tell you.
Okay, all right. Let's
Dr. Neil.
Okay, I want to move on. Let's move before the queue is still on. COVID, you wanted to respond, but you are next after the next person. So if you want to respond to when is your turn. So next up now is Son of God. Son of God, how far? Son of God, are you there?
Just a second. I was trying to get you ready to the tour. I don't know where to start. There's so many information.
We can't hear you well, though. Sure, you give us a little more volume.
Is it better now?
Stuck again.
Is it better now?
Fantastic.
Okay. Let me see. The first thing I'm going to say is, if you threaten people that if they do something wrong, they'll be punished, and if they do something good, they will get rewarded, what's the motivation to do something good? If you do something good now, you can be doing it not because you want to be good, but you are doing it because there's a reward. To me, that doesn't make you a good person, because it's like I'm trying to be friends with you because there are some benefits I'm going to get from being friends with you. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, what with you? Yes, we are hearing you. What with you?
Okay, things went very quiet. Okay. So this hell thing, it doesn't make any sense to me, because that was when I was really little, there was a time that I was thinking about this hell. I was depressed. I was crying continuously because I was coming from school. I was in primary school then, and I was coming home. I saw this obituary and I saw people gathered, because I used to live in Mushin. I saw people gathered. It was an Igbo boy that I think used to do spare parts business, and the guy was like 20 something. And I saw people were sad. I was saying, that was where I discovered that. So one day I'm going to die. But when I dropped this whole religion thing, I now found that that's the motivation that pushes people to stay in religion, especially in Nigeria. That fear of death. No one knows, because no one has actually died and came back and said there's hell. Because for each country and each religion, when people die, they always have a different afterlife. There was even one documentary I was watching one time that they said that they did this experiment, because people say when they are in is it when they're in coma or they're in a trance or something, that they see themselves floating. That they see themselves floating around the ER or wherever it is that they're performing the surgery. And they put a picture on top of a shelf that faces the ceiling, so that they'll be able to tell if those people are floating, or if the brain that is, the chemicals that the brain is releasing is making them try to be at peace, like there's somewhere they are going to. And none of these people, none of these patients who was flying, who felt that they were flying, saw this image. So the thing just made the whole thing collapse. That whatever people think that they are calling their afterlife is not real. Because if you go to the Hindus, the Buddhists, each time someone gets this near-death experience, they always see something different. It's always that God that they're exposed to, that they always see. I've never seen a Muslim that doesn't even know anything about Christianity, although there's a common ground that Muslims have. That Muslims say that there's Jesus in the picture, but Jesus is just a prophet. And Jesus was not even crucified. It was Judas that was crucified in his place. And all Christians are going to hell because they worship man as God. I've read it, so I read the whole Quran, the whole Bible, because I was looking for the truth. True, what he was saying about if you have a child and you know that the child might hate you. What I'm just going to say about that is because God's own part is way is different, because it's not a might. He knows for certain. He's omniscient. He knows everything that is going to happen before it happens. And the knowledge that you said is his way is above our way. If you want your people to serve you, it doesn't make sense for you to be able to be uniform. It's just like I'm a scientist now. I tell you that 2 + 2 is 4. Even though I have all the PhDs, I have 15 PhDs, and I tell you 2 + 2 is 4. Wouldn't it should occur to me that someone will question this, and how is 2 + 2 4? So I'm supposed to make a formula that will be able to make that the next person, that if they want to confirm it, they will be able to arrive at the same result. Is that too hard for God to do? Just a thought. That's my contribution.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, son of God. Thank you. So next up is COVID. So COVID, you have like 3 minutes.
Okay, I'll make it real.
Everyone is putting on their nose mask.
Yeah. There's social distancing.
I was wearing mine, but I took it off.
Anyways,
sorry, before you talk,
okay.
Everybody, if you're not gotten the COVID vaccine, please get to. As a COVID vaccine wants to talk now, get the COVID vaccine. COVID is, especially if you're in Nigeria, Nigerians don't take that shit serious. They think they move.
He would have named himself the Delta variant. That was more
Okay, COVID, go on.
Yeah, so at the beginning of this room, I was, coming in and out, but where I remained was where I started listening to Mr. Biscuit say, stuff about hell, hell and fire, the hellfire not being literal, and then the heaven with gold also not being literal. When I left religion or Christianity to be precise, I think what stood out to me was how the description of these two places that are not on earth are so like the elements that are used to describe them, or the elements, I wouldn't use the word describe, but the elements that they are, right? The elements that they are still the same that we know within ourselves, amongst ourselves, which is fire, gold, pearls, diamonds, and whatnot. You see, it goes to show you that, because if you move from Earth here down to Mars or to other planets, you would see that, there is a big, the elements are not the same, right? So the elements are not the same. If you go to Jupiter, if you go to Mars, they are not consistent with what we have here on Earth. So it makes me wonder, why is this that all of a sudden these two places that are not even in the physical realm would have all we know in this our limited understanding? It makes me think and believe that it was just humanly constructed, right? as a social tool to control the behaviors of men, to make sure that they conform to these doctrines. So there was something also Biscuit said, and he said, "Can everybody hear me?" Okay.
Yeah.
There was something
I can
Biscuit
hear
said.
you.
Okay, there was something Mr. Biscuit said, and he said that he doesn't think, keyword think. I heard him. He said he doesn't think that those those things were literal, but they were just metaphorical descriptions. And my question to him is why? What informs him to believe that which was written in the Bible to describe what hell is and what heaven is? What informed him to feel that it is metaphorical as opposed to literal? Because it's a very, very important question, because this is one of the reasons why you would have 8 churches on one street reading from one Bible, saying 8 different things on one particular subject, right? I think what would help would just be nothing short of consistency, right? Clarity. Even the scientist, the finite man, right? The man that is prone to error, is still shown to be consistent in his errors and in his progresses, right? So I don't think it would be too much to ask that a God that is, all knowing, and in his wisdom, he would write this book in such a way that it would be understandable to the littlest of children, 1. 2, that there will be no confusion whatsoever. Because here, right now, we already have one situation where someone is not even sure whether it is literal or metaphorical. And like I said, I asked him a question, and I'm saying, what informs him to believe that it is metaphorical as opposed to literal? But because to me, I would want to believe it was literal, right? And
Would
I
you mind
think
if I responded to the question?
Wait, hold on. Kobe, you have 30 seconds more.
yeah. So
Round up.
I think I think that's pretty much it. It's really, I don't even know the word to use, but you look around, you see science. This is why we can keep relying on science, right? You heard Ranting now just say we should go get the vaccine. He didn't say we should go to some church to get some anointing oil. And I want to believe Neil and Mr. Biscuit would not advise us to come to their church to get some anointing oil. If their church were consistent in healing people, or they showed consistency in turning health situations for the better, I believe they will be in the right position to proffer their advice. But so all I ask, I'm speaking for me right now, is consistency. And I think it's weird that what was used to describe these 2 places are just all we know. I wish, when God was revealing these things to John, he could give the actual names of these things. Just say, okay, this is some trees, this is green tar, this is, you will walk on Clentil. Do you get, just call some weird names that we've never heard before and let us know that, okay, we're looking forward to that. It's not like we already know what gold is and pearls and diamonds. So I think that's all I have to say.
Okay, Mr. Biscuits, you have 1 minute to respond.
1 minute?
You wait. Okay, if you can't respond in that time, you wait for the queue to come around to you, because there's still at least 5 people who haven't spoken.
Sorry to interrupt. Ranting. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jide Jadon Adigun. I live in Nigeria, and I've enjoyed the discussion so far. So I'm not a moderator, and but I just wanted to make a suggestion. Since the question from COVID was a little bit long, and the guy was literally preaching for almost 10 minutes, if not more than. I think it would be unfair to give just 1 minute of response. So I think Mr. Biscuit should have, at the very least, 3 minutes. That's just my opinion anyway. I'm not a moderator, so I can't say I can't call the shots, but I'm just making a suggestion.
Okay, fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, Mr. Biscuit.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think the question put to me was, what gives me the justification of thinking that it's not literal and that it is metaphorical? So when you read the Bible, you're not reading Harry Potter, for instance. You're not reading just one book. The Bible is 66 different books. Some of them are poetry that should be read poetically. Some of them are prophetic, written by someone who presumes himself to be a prophet. Some were written from a historical perspective. Some of them are war texts. And so when you're reading the Bible, it's important for you to recognize what the author was trying to portray. So one of the reasons that I understand John's description of heaven to be metaphorical is because he's using metaphorical language. He says like a lot. The voice of God was like rushing water. His face shone like the brightness of the sun. So when he's saying this was like this and like that,
well, that is a comparison.
What he's trying to, I'm sorry?
That is a comparison. That is not a metaphor.
Correct. So what I'm saying is, when he's using a comparison, he's saying it's not literal rushing water. He's saying this is what it was like. So the streets were paved with gold, right? So John is using this metaphorical language throughout his entire picture of the heavenlies. And Jesus was known for using parallels and parables. So what a parable means literally is a story cast alongside reality. That's literally what parable means. And so what Jesus was trying to do when he told parables was take reality and put it alongside a story to make spiritual realities make more sense to people who live in the natural world. And the reason that makes a lot of sense is because if I was from another planet, let's say, a planet that no one had seen before, and in that planet there's nothing like anything on Earth, then the best way to describe that planet to you would be the use of metaphor. Or the best way to describe it to you would be to say, okay, on my planet, there's something kind of like trees and something kind of like grass and kind of like rocks, while not being that exact thing, but trying to paint a picture for you. And so these are some of the reasons why I understand those descriptions to be metaphorical instead of literal.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
All right. Thank you for listening to this episode. If you're here to subscribe, please consider subscribing. Apple, Spotify, Google, any other place you get your podcast. If you are not on Clubhouse, please join. Then also join the Free Thinkers Hangout on Clubhouse. Links are in the show notes below. Have a great week and take care.